Creators of New Earth. And you can see I have a different background today, a flower of life with, it has all the chakra symbols on it. Pretty exciting. It's not quite as vivid as the indigo blue backdrop that I was using. Um, so we'll see if I keep it. And then I have a little orchid over here, my favorite flower in the whole wide world. And purple orchids are also connected to Anna, Yeshua's grandmother. So I like to have those around. This backdrop I had ordered, and it came to me, or it arrived in the mail right after I had a session with a woman named Jeanette, who I'll be talking about in this video. She has helped me to find and transform a past life that's been haunting me for many lifetimes, and so it was so symbolic that it came on that day when I began my healing of that lifetime. It was as if the flower of life returned to me. And you may know that the flower of life contains the universal blueprint for all life. So I also want to speak directly to my readers on Substack that read my weekly blog, because this will be in place of a weekly blog. So it's a weekly vlog, video log, VLOG. I will, as time passes, write about this experience, but there's so much going on, and so the experience I had that I will talk about took place on February 13th. And since then, I have been going through so much transformation, my etheric body, my mental body, my emotional body, my physical body, especially my physical body. And I've really needed to stay present with the experience and remain in awareness and engage the intellect as little as possible, so that this experience can have time to unfold. And although I love writing, and I do write from the heart, writing very much engages the intellect. And so rather than write about it, I wanted to present it in this way, live, me sharing the experience by talking about it. So for all my Substack subscribers, hello, welcome. And as I just mentioned, I am offering you this week, as opposed to the normal written format. And I didn't publish it on Substack because I would rather make this recording once rather than make it on Substack and make it here. And I'm not too comfortable or familiar yet with recording on Substack with video, just with voice. So without further ado, let's get to this past life. So to get to the past life, we'll have to start with the present one, which is, I better turn my phone off. Just a minute, pardon me. It's right by me here, thank goodness. Don't need anybody calling me in the middle of a live stream, do I? Let me turn this off. Thank you for your patience. Power off and power off. Done. Voila. So in any case, I was born with clubbed feet. So there's many types of clubbed feet, but I was physically, I hate to use the word deformed, but my feet weren't born like most people. They're born, their feet are like this. Mine were facing sole to sole. And it was because my Achilles tendons were too short, so they were pulling everything in this way. And in order to fix that, when I was 2 weeks old, I had a surgery, and they stretched the Achilles tendons, and then my legs were put in casts and braces for the first year of life, and then corrective shoes for the first 4 years of life. So I had always wondered why I was born with club feet. I know, it would be easy to chalk it up to, oh, it was just something physical. Um, and that just didn't answer it for me. And I knew that it was important. I've been searching for the clue to why I was born with club feet my whole life. And recently, excuse me. Thank you. So recently, I've been taking a class with my mentor. You've seen him on some of the lives on here. We're currently doing a chakra series where the first Sunday of every month we talk about a chakra. So far we've completed the first two. And then the first Sunday in March, we'll discuss the third chakra and so forth until we reach the seventh. So in any case, Kevin Snow is his name, and I've been taking a course with him on transforming trauma. And I'll come back to that later. But those tools have helped me greatly in uncovering what I just uncovered about a past life. And you also may remember, either from reading my blogs or watching these videos, that I've begun to work with my DNA. And when I say that, I'm not talking about the DNA that you can study under a microscope. And I'm not even talking about um, my physical DNA. I'm more talking about the metaphysical components of DNA. And, we are taught to believe in this. We're taught to believe that we have two strands of DNA. And in the metaphysical world, there are people waking up to the fact that there are really infinite strands of DNA because, we are infinite, even if we can't wrap our intellect around that. We are infinite, and so yeah, we have infinite strands of DNA. And I would posit that DNA in its purest form is light in the form of information. And I would also posit that DNA is, I've said this in previous videos, I believe, it's our personal Akashic record. So it's the vessel for all of the imprints and stories that we carry from previous lives. And so in the past, since Well, the past 2 years, I've been exploring working with DNA. And then I've been working very closely with my metagenic, my metaphysical uh, DNA um, since the end of summer. And when I decided to go on this journey, I let my mentor know that, hey, this is what I'm doing. And I suspected that, I have felt in some ways cut off from my own abundance, the abundance of my true nature, um, the the abundance of my creativity, um, blockages to um, thriving, um, money blockages, um, and okay, hold on one second. You guys are always so patient with me. So I have a cat, and he wants to go in his special place. So I am going to go open the door to his special place, and then I'll be right back. Okay, one second. There you go. Um, so, um, my, there you go, JJ. So, my journey here on earth is to remember what I am, to remember the truth of, of who I am. And I believe that to be light in the form of information. And I believe that that frequency is pure love. And I also believe that there are imprints or obscurations in our DNA. And that if we can find those and transform those, and remember, again, I'm talking about the metaphysical DNA. I'm not saying we don't have imprints in our physical DNA. Obviously, we do, right? Then we would talk more about epigenetics and what's carried in the bloodline. So, to back up a little bit, I believe that we are on simultaneously two journeys or have two missions, or I shouldn't say we, because I can't speak for anybody else, myself. So, part of my work here in this body, in this physical incarnation, is to help transform the DNA of my maternal and paternal lineages, which is inside of me physically. And it's also my job to transform any imprints that I carry in my metaphysical DNA, um, that are blocking me from expressing my true nature. So, in other words, we all carry the frequency of love in our divine blueprint because that is truly what we are. And then, due to um, past life experiences and experiences in this life, usually in the form of trauma, or things that happen to us, experiences that we've had that our psyche remembers as bad, or uh, experiences where we had immense grief, or experiences that very much angered us, or experiences where um where we've that have caused us great grief, fear, anger, sadness. And those leave imprints on us. And we carry those around, and it becomes part of our cellular structure. And it affects our psyche, and it affects our subconscious, and it affects our choices. As a matter of fact, lots of our choices are made in order not to trigger these traumas. We're often avoiding triggering these traumas. Um, and that's our psyche's way of protecting itself. So often we push experiences down into the subconscious, sub meaning below the consciousness, so that they're not face to face with us, because they have such a strong charge, right, that they can trigger us. And um, these are often locked also in our central nervous system, and they keep looping and looping. You may sometimes feel very tightly wound, or you may get into certain situations where you are triggered, and your central nervous system just goes haywire, and you go from parasympathetic to sympathetic. That's why you see so many videos these days, and books, and there's so much information out there on how to um, work with the vagus nerve, which helps bring you back into parasympathetic mode. Um, so there's lots of information, books, videos, etc., workshops, classes on trauma, on the vagus nerve, on the central nervous system, on um, how to get out of sympathetic mode into parasympathetic mode, where your nervous system can relax, right? So anytime we move from an expanded, relaxed state to a tense, uh, contracted state, um, that produces physiology and chemical reactions in our body, and it loops over and over in a way. It's this like constant running program in us. Some people are always in anxiety mode, or um, some people have to deal with depression throughout their life, et cetera, et cetera. All of these are connected to um, emotions and beliefs that we carry from past experiences, either this lifetime or others. And so, um, my whole life, I've been searching for a lot of things. It's like when I was in my 20s, I was like, well, what is the meaning of life? And what am I doing here? And what is this all about? And why is there so much suffering? And I studied Tibetan Buddhism for quite a while, and that answered a lot of questions for me. But eventually, I felt there was something else I was missing. So I've been viewing it two ways lately. One is that, I kind of laugh at myself a little bit and tease myself about, oh, the next video and the next workshop and the next uh, healer, or the next modality, or the next thing, right? Like on this constant quest and search, like what do they call those? Not a treasure hunt. Anyways, so constantly searching for something to, um, I guess, ultimately unlock the key to myself. And so, in any case, began working with my DNA, and in each instance, so the first, someone asked me recently, how do you find out like which strands of DNA you're working with? And I think if you sit very quietly and pose that question, um, if that's something you're used to doing, is looking internally and asking questions and waiting to see or hear or feel an answer, or you might ask a question and you start noticing what is around you. Maybe you see specific numbers or something like this. um, in my case, when I work with my mentor and we ask questions, um, usually Yeshua and Mary Magdalene are right there, and Mother Mary and Joseph and archangels, and often they will give the information to Kevin, and Kevin gives it to me. So we tuned into spirit and posed the question. I asked, so what I wanted to work with specifically were suppressions on my DNA around money. But it's not, how can I explain? It was money, but it was bigger than that. It was like being, what is the blockage that cuts me off from my own ability to thrive, cuts me off from my own ability to access my creativity and use that creativity to thrive and to be in the flow of abundance, right? So the numbers that came out were 33, 37, 42, and 47. So I won't go into the story of clearing 33 and 37, but I was able to lift the suppression off those. And when I decided to do that, so with each strand of DNA, okay, I set my intention to work with that strand of DNA. And then I call forth to me, what is what what will I be working with to remove the suppression? What is the blockage? And what do I need to do to release that contraction, or to remove the blockage, or to transform whatever it is that's at the root of the blockage? And so um, I I I have conversations with myself about it, and with my body, and I'm uncomfortable using the word higher self because I think I am my higher self, but I guess you could say conversations with my higher self, or conversations with something that's beyond my intellect, that surpasses the intellect, because the intellect is very limited in its um the intellect kind of only plays really in one dimension, and we are multidimensional. So if you want to access information about yourself, or any information really that goes beyond this realm, then you need to, put the intellect in the back seat. And I would say that a lot of this also has to do with employing your imagination, which is your creativity, right? So lots of people have used their imagination to create the life that they're now living. They had an idea, and they started um, using their creativity and using their imagination to bring the reality that they wish to create into their life, and 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 bring that from the realm of thoughts and imagination into the physical realm. So we do it all the time. We imagine maybe that we want to create a garden, or that we want to sew an outfit, or that we want to create a painting for somebody, right? Art, for instance, comes from the imagination. Lots of things that you see painted you won't see in the in physical reality. So I say that to say that I also am employing my imagination in uprooting, seeking, finding, uprooting, and transforming these blockages to lift the suppression and transmute the blockages that are at the root of these suppressions, right? So when it came time to transform the 42nd strand of DNA, um, I kept hearing, I tuned into Anna. She's actually guides me on this process too. And I tuned into Anna and I said, so what is the theme of this current strand that I'm clearing? And she said, regeneration and rebuilding. And and in the way of that was victimhood, uh, trauma, um, mm, I guess you could say all of the things that were blocking my truest, purest expression of myself, right? So we all have a divine blueprint, and the vibration of that blueprint is love. It's the same frequency as love, right? So we carry within our divine blueprint a frequency of love. And when we have a trauma or an extreme experience that carries with it anger, fear, uh, or grief, that imprints our DNA, both the non-physical form of DNA and the physical form of DNA. And so I was working with it a little bit, and I look into what starts to show up in my life. Either is something presenting myself and it's in the body? Is there physical pain that shows up somewhere? Um, what's like what's happening in my daily life that I could see might be directly related to what I'm working with at the moment. And in this work with Kevin, uh, it's an 8-week workshop. So it's about transforming trauma. And it's about working with emotions and beliefs. So coming into awareness, tuning into the body, being aware of what's in the room around you, coming into presence, feeling your body, noticing any sensations, and getting really still and quiet, and just letting what arise. And so one day, recently, I was lying on my bed. This was February 12th. Um, okay. I am going to take a 1-minute break and I'll be right back. Okay. I know this isn't common or professional or anything like that, but I have to do that. I'll be right back. Thank you for your patience. Thank you so much. Um, have you ever traveled with children? Or maybe you even remember when you were a child and, your parents ask you, oh, um, do you have to go to the bathroom before we get in the car? And you don't have to go to the bathroom, so you say no. And then you start traveling down the road, and 15 or 20 minutes later you have to go to the bathroom, and your parents say, well, I asked you to if you had to go before we left, and you were like, well, I didn't have to go then. So I did try to prepare myself so I wouldn't have to get up and leave in the middle of the video, but there it is. The body's going to do what it does. So thank you for your patience. So I was sitting one morning in this awareness, and a question I had had for a while now, because seems like it's been since, well, I don't know. I've felt tired off and on for, it seems like years now, where there's just sometimes it doesn't feel like there's enough energy to support my life. And November, December was feeling very tired. I've been feeling tired since then. Not as much recently, which is great. Means things are shifting. But so I posed the question, why do I feel so tired all the time? And the answer that came was overwhelm. And below that was the belief that I am not enough, right? So in this working with transforming trauma, every emotion that you have, whether it's rage, whether it's overwhelm, whether it's disappointment, name all the adjectives. If you sit with that long enough and really think about, at the root of this, what is there? Is there anger? Is there fear? Or is there sadness? And at the root of all of our beliefs, you can pick one belief. Well, let me explain it a different way. We have three primary emotions: anger, fear, and sadness. And we have three primary beliefs, which is either I've been abandoned, I'm not enough, or it's not fair. So I was like, okay, I feel overwhelmed. I feel tired. Why? I feel overwhelmed. Why? I feel like I'm not enough. And with that, I believe it was tied to the emotion of fear. And then I don't know how or why it came up, but oh, no. Fear. Yeah, fear. Let's see, tiredness. Yeah, so the tired was attached to, I forget which emotion. Maybe it'll come as I start to talk about it. But there was a belief that I am not enough. And, it makes good sense that you would feel tired if you felt you weren't enough. Because if you're not enough, I mean, you are energy, right? So if you're feeling you're not enough, then if you're not enough, how can you have enough energy to conduct your life? So then all of a sudden, it came to me, this strong awareness of me being born with club feet and feeling like I wasn't enough, like I wasn't perfect, like I was a disappointment to my parents. And it hit me that this was a subconscious, meaning below my field of awareness. It wasn't in my consciousness. It was under the consciousness, right? And it was rising. Because as you work with these strands of DNA, and you work with, or if you're not working with that, if you're just working with things that you would like to get to the root of, if you're spending time in meditation and spending time in awareness and allowing emotions to arise, allowing to note your state of mind, how you're feeling, and see if possibly there's any emotion tied to that, and then figure out what the belief is. Often there's an experience tied to that, and it will rise you're ready to, when you're ready. So in any case, this was the day before I was to meet with Jeanette. A couple weeks ago, I was on the phone with a friend of mine, and she's been a lifelong astrologer and tarot reader. And she had something that she'd been trying to get to the bottom of. And we were on the phone, and I told her that I was currently working with this 42nd strand of DNA. And I told her there was something that I felt a blockage, and I wanted to trace the roots of that blockage and really understand what that root was and where it was coming from. And she had just had a similar experience where she'd wanted to get to the root of something, and um, she was turned on to this woman named Jeanette. And Jeanette helped her to get to the root of what it was. And I thought, so this is the thing. Remember, I told you when I ask to work on a specific strand, I'm paying attention to who's coming up, what people, what names, what numbers, what experiences, what are things that are parallel to the theme that I'm working with. And so when she said Jeanette's name and told me about her experience, it just lit up as like, wow, I really believe this person could help me uncover what it is I'm trying to uncover. So I made an appointment with Jeanette, and interestingly enough, the story that I just told you about um, how I felt about the club feet and what was buried in the subconscious, I knew that it was a piece. Like I knew that I was lifting a layer or opening a door in order to prepare for my work with Jeanette. So I just intuitively got up from my meditation, and I went outside and I took my shoes off and I put my feet on the ground. And I work with the octahedron, as many people do. So the octahedron is, you imagine one pyramid pointed upwards and one pointing downwards, and they're connected. So it's like a 3D diamond shape. So I surrounded myself with an octahedron, and I invited um, beings that I work with: Yeshua, Mary Magdalene, Yeshua's mother and father, Yeshua's grandmother and grandfather. I invited my own biological mother and father. I invited my embryonic self. I invited my freshly born self, um, and some other beings that I work with, and some other aspects of myself to be present, because I was about to make a prayer and a decree, and I wanted these beings to bear witness. And I don't remember the exact words I said, but using this method that Kevin has taught me about how to uh, transmute emotions and transmute beliefs, I did this 8-step process while I was um, standing in this octahedron with all these beings bearing witness. And I really let go of those subconscious beliefs that I held, that I'm not enough and I'm not perfect because I was born with club feet. And um, I just let that all go right through the soles of my feet, right into earth, because Mother Earth is a great transformer. So I'll do another video later about this process that has many steps to it about how to transform um, emotions and beliefs. But basically, I walked myself through that process, from coming into awareness of having these feelings and beliefs to giving the emotion to the Divine Mother and giving the belief to the Divine Father and surrendering those emotions and beliefs to spirit and accepting that I held those emotions and beliefs and forgiving myself for um, having held those false beliefs and having gratitude for the process and for having arrived there and having compassion for myself. And I really felt when I made my decree and my prayer, I really felt a huge, huge transformation. Like I had just peeled a layer off an onion and something I'd been carrying around a long time, subconsciously since birth, so literally my whole life. And so then the next day was February 13th, and I was very excited to meet Jeanette. And February 13th, a year ago, I was in a healing session that I gave myself as a going away present when I left Santa Fe. And when I was in that session was the first time that I met Anna, the first time she presented herself to me. That's the grandmother of Yeshua. And so it was very auspicious. Like I hadn't even thought about it when I made the appointment with Jeanette, that was also February 13th. And 13 is a big deal in my life. My father passed away on August 13th. I met Anna on the 13th. I was now going to have this appointment with Jeanette that was on the 13th. And then I think that same day, after my appointment with Jeanette, I realized, so my mother was born October 3rd. I was born August 15th. My father was born on April 27th. So I'm not talking about the years, I'm just talking about the month and the date, right? So if I add up 8 and 1 and 4, August 14th, that's my birthday. If I add those numbers up, 8 and 1 and 4, it's oh wait, 8 and 1 and 4. Yeah, 8 and 1 is 9 and 4 is 13. If I add up 10 and 3, October 3rd, 10 and 3, it's 13. If I add up 4, October 27th, 4 and 2 and 7, it's 13. So anyway, needless to say. And 13 is also, 13 is a lot of things, but it's the divine feminine. So I'm going to bring Jeanette on here to talk about her work because I don't feel safe saying, oh, she's a this or she's a that, and labeling her or or talking about what her work is exactly or how she does it, because I don't feel that I can represent it clearly or fairly. But I will say that how it works is when you come to her, you already have an agreement with yourself that you are willing to look at whatever is going to present itself. And whatever is going to present itself, you are ready to bear witness to, or it wouldn't be coming up, right? Oh, you guys are probably going to do a face palm, but you know what? My computer is running low on juice, and so I'm going to go get the cord and plug it in. Okay, I'll be right back. This will take seconds. Thanks, guys. So I mentioned that that whatever was going to come up, that I'm already in agreement with myself to bear witness to those things, or they wouldn't show themselves. So in other words, the time was ripe. Now remember, the day before, I had made the decree and the prayer about being willing to finally surrender and lay down this burden and this false belief that I'm not enough and that I'm not perfect and that I disappointed my parents and everything around this, my feet. Okay. I'm going to rewind here for a second and then I'll come back to my appointment with Jeanette. Not long before I left Santa Fe, so Todd Medina and Morgan Lee are two people who are the founders of Sology. And Sology is a platform where people like me, or probably people watching this, can converge and talk about all things spiritual. And Morgan has a platform called zeropointing.com. And that's a whole nother story. I won't go into it too much, but let's just say Todd and Morgan, you can do sessions with them where it's like it is a guided journey. Okay. So months before I left Santa Fe, I went on a guided journey. And when I say journey, I'm not talking about mushrooms or ayahuasca. There's no substances involved, right? So when you go on the journey with them, they're both holding space, but one is sort of the eyes for where you're going, right? So Morgan and Todd together were holding space for me, and Todd was the eyes. If you're curious about Sology, you can look up Sology One Studios, which is here on YouTube. There's also a Sology, Soulogy, Facebook page, or you can look up Todd Medina, Todd, last name Medina. And Morgan Lee is also on Facebook. So I did a session with them, and in this session, what came through, so we ended up inside of a pyramid, and I have strong Egyptian connection from past lives. Anyway, so we ended up inside of a pyramid. And in that pyramid was Sekhmet and Bastet. You may know them. They are feline goddesses from the Egyptian pantheon. So we ended up inside this pyramid, and Bastet washed my feet. And I knew this to be very symbolic because, there's lots of, for instance, Mary Magdalene, the how I see Mary Magdalene and Yeshua is they are divine masculine and divine feminine counterparts, right? So anyway, so there's anointing of the feet in many sacred scenarios. And so I found that interesting that she was anointing my feet. And what she was telling me is that what we were doing in the pyramid at that time was it was a celebration of a completion of a certain level of life. Like I had completed, Yeah, I had completed a chapter in my life, and now I was being initiated into the next level that I'm working on. And the feet thing was stuck in my head, but I wouldn't realize until right now why it was so important. I just thought of it as like, someone anointing your feet and, you know, taking steps forward um, into the next chapter or level of initiation, or however you want to see that. So, yeah, so I'd completed a level of initiation. She was initiating me into my next level, and she uh, gave me a dress to wear like the one that she wears, and she put a blue and green sash around my waist, and there was lots to it, but let's just say that happened, and it involved my feet. Okay, so I'm now realizing, looking back, that she was preparing me to let go of this burden and this subconscious belief that I had carried about my feet for my whole life. And then I did yet another level of it, right? The day before my appointment with Jeanette, when I went outside and laid that burden down. So I get on the phone with Jeanette, and in a form that I had to fill out before we had our session, Rose. Um, she asks, what are a few of the most I don't know, prominent experiences you remember in your life? And I wrote down my mother's passing, my father's passing, and being born with club feet. And so she described how the session would go. I won't go into all the detail because we'll have her on here later as a guest, and she can describe that to you. And she let me know that what she's like a detective. So I told her that I was working on that 42nd strand of DNA, and that I've had this, I have this blockage, I feel. And I told her about the experience with my feet, what I had done the day before. And I also told her that I feel like, for much of my adult life, I've felt like a lighter with no flint. So it's like you try to light it and there's a spark, but the flame won't stay, right? Because there's no flint to hold the flame. And I feel with so many things in my life, it's like there's this stop, start, stop, start, stop, start. Like I initially get enthused or excited or inspired about a project or something I want to do, and then it just wanes or it fades, especially if there's too many obstacles. And I mean, but granted, like there's a lot of things that I stayed the course with for years and completed, um, like studying Chinese medicine and practicing that for years, or certain uh, like my spiritual path. I've always been dedicated to that. But things like keeping consistency with routines like yoga or meditation, or following through on projects. Like I said, sometimes I get disinterested or disenchanted, and I just say, okay, and kind of let it go. And I was always curious, why is there this like start stop? And I feel like also lots of my life, it's so easy for me to get distracted. It's like my attention just gets pulled off from center to something or somewhere else. And I'd always wondered what the root of that is. And interestingly enough, those things both of those things, the lack of consistency and the losing focus, um, and the overwhelm, were directly connected to my club feet and to the passing of my mother. So what came up during that session is that I did have a former life where I was very, very, very um, connected to my divine blueprint. And I knew myself as love. And I was very much in my wisdom and power and very much connected to my divine blueprint and holding that frequency of love that I am and you are and we all are, if we can just remember. So, what happens when we have traumatic experiences is that another frequency, other than the frequency of love, something that doesn't match our authentic vibration, comes in, and now we have that frequency to contend with. So we're holding a frequency that does not match our authentic pure frequency, which is love. And it creates, I would say, frenetic. You know that word frenetic? Like I think of a stable candle flame, and then I think of one that's like flickering all over, or certain kinds of music are very frenetic, like it's hard to relax when you listen to them. I think of frenetic energy as like this, like it's not stable, it's not steady. So what came up is that in a past life, as I was a woman who was very connected to source, to God, to however you call that, and to my own divinity, and to love, and to my own wisdom and power. And I was so powerful that we all are. I'm just talking about this life, okay? The past life. Is powerful enough. It's like if I had a staff and I set it on the ground, I could part seas if I want. And this is the thing, y'all, is we all are that powerful. We've just forgotten, or we're carrying frequencies that don't match our authentic frequency. And so we're having a hard time remembering. And there's also things buried in the subconscious that are um, contending with that, right? With our authentic, true, pure state of being. So, being that powerful, um, the patriarchy uh, felt very threatened by this person, me, in a previous life. And so that they decided that they needed to do away with me. And so what they did is they tied my arms and wrists behind my back and tied my ankles together and threw me either off of a tall structure or a cliff. I think it's a cliff because, oh, and they gagged me too. I think it's a cliff because that's what I saw as we were in session together. So yeah, threw me off of a cliff, but not just threw me, like threw me to the ground. You could say threw me, but then I was still hanging because I was attached to this rope. So I'm hanging by my feet, gagged, with my arms and wrists tied behind my back and my feet tied together. And I just remember thinking, if I never would have been that powerful, this wouldn't have happened. And I remember thinking, like, where's God now? Like, why doesn't God save me from this dilemma, you know? And so I disconnected. I disconnected from my divine blueprint. I disconnected from source. I disconnected from love. My focus went from love to fear. And the feeling of fearing my own power and fearing my connection to God because the belief became eh, connecting to source is dangerous because this is what happens. And connecting to my own power is not safe because this is what happens. But source never left me, right? I disconnected from source when I shifted my focus from love to fear. The other thing I want to say is that, okay, so wait, there's more to the session. I'm going to put a little footnote here. These kinds of traumas can follow you from one life to the other. This one, the imprint was so strong that it translated into a physical deformity in this lifetime. It's very important for me to share that because the way we comport ourselves and hold our energy in this lifetime does follow us into the next. And I want to get to a state that no matter what happens to me, physically, mentally, or otherwise, I can hold that frequency of love. I can hold that focus of love so that I don't have to experience feeling like I'm not enough, or being born with a deformity, or feeling disconnected from God, or feeling disconnected from my power in the face of any situation. And I really believe that Yeshua, the only reason he was able to come back from such a horrid experience or re-embody his body or be resurrected, as some people call it, is that he never lost his focus, which was love, right? He didn't fall into victimhood. He didn't fall into hatred. He didn't fall into anger, sadness, fear. Now, I don't know. This is just my sense, but I'm thinking if that's what happened to me, like I lost my shift, my focus went from love to fear, and I died, right? Um, so anyway, I won't go too into that thought now, but I do want to plant that seed. So so how is this connected to my mother's passing? So she also could find, she's a great detective. So Jeanette found where my body was holding this, besides the obvious thing of my ankles, right? So my thoracic vertebrae, my thoracic vertebrae 8, 9, and 10, which are connected to liver and to kidneys and to the adrenals. Um, and each of these are connected to an emotional state too, like, oh, feeling like you're a fraud, or feeling like you're not enough, or feeling like a victim of life, or all of these things. When she described the emotional components of each of these vertebrae, I was floored. Some lit up more than others. um, there's a great book she talked about emotions in the body or something. I'll have to ask her about it during the interview. So in any case, when it came to my mother, so when my mother passed away, and I don't mean to be shocking to anybody, and um I'm just going to say it because it's part of the information I'm trying to give you. So my mother, when I was 19, she was chemically imbalanced and she had been suffering for about a decade, and she couldn't find a way to transform her suffering. And so the only way she felt that she could turn that suffering switch off was to take her own life. And the way that she chose to do that is to jump off the Golden Gate Bridge. Well, when that happened, it activated this past life that I had had of being thrown off. And my central nervous system froze in this, well, it it kind of got stuck in flight mode, and there was this looping in my body, and I just became very tightly wound, and I never really fathomed, like for me in my subconscious, my mom was always like, she never hit the water, because I was equating it. I was making a parallel between her experience and that experience where I was thrown over the cliff, but I never landed. I was just suspended in midair. So that experience of my mom was also suspended, like it had nowhere to land, and it just kept looping in my central nervous system, and it also activated that shock and trauma from that past life. So I'm saying this also to explain how this is an example of how something that happened to me in this life triggered something that happened in a past life and directly affected my central nervous system. And also the experience of that past life left an imprint on me physically, so that I was even born with deformed feet. So Janet and I went through the rest of the session, and there was a point where it read back like a movie, where the woman who had been thrown over the cliff is now, it's like if you're watching a movie in reverse. So she's coming up from the cliff, she's safely back on ground, there are no more ropes, there's no more men around her who tied her up and threw her over. So it's like all back to before the experience happened. And then she works with Saint Germain. Um, and so we used the violet flame to transform that experience and purify that from my physical body and my emotional body and my mental body and my etheric body. And she did say to me that, by the way, her price is amazing. She's like $120 for an hour and a half. Like, there's a lot of people who, with her level of skill and efficacy, would charge so much more. So I was already really impressed. That's a very generous price. And she spent 2 hours on the phone with me. Not only that, she said, okay, so things are going to come up as you integrate this experience. Um, it could be emotions, could be physical sensations, could be, every single body and person is different. So I can't say what's going to happen for you, but I can safely say, she said, that something is likely to come up. And as it does, you can text me and reach out, and I will either text you back or call you. And I was allowed to do this for 5 days. So not only did she give me 2 hours of her time, but she gave me access to her for the next 5 days. And I used that. I did. I texted her. She would check in. How are you doing? How are you feeling? Now, what came up for me, excuse me, is that I began to have pain in my ankle, in my left ankle. And um, it didn't go away. It got worse and worse and worse. Today is the first day where I'm really not, like, I can feel it every time I take a step, and I'm limping a little bit, but I have literally been hobbling, and I mean hobbling. Not just limping, but hobbling around. And so she would work with me each day and send me some energy. She works in the quantum field, and it would release. And what she reminded me, it was such a helpful reframe, because I was thinking, oh, my body's holding on to this experience, holding on to this experience. That's why it's in pain, because it can't let this go. But she reminded me, no, you're not in pain because you're holding on to the experience. You're having the pain because your body is releasing the experience. Now, we tend to think of pain as a blockage of energy, right? But there's been a blockage of energy in there for so long, however many lifetimes I've been holding on to it, and since birth with this club feet, right? And that imprint was coming to the surface, right? You know how they say you got to reveal it to heal it, and it's I've been holding on to this for lifetimes, right? And so, man, it was really hard. I mean, I there was one day, because what I really would have loved was just to lie down and rest and feel everything that I was feeling in my etheric body and my mental body and emotional body and physical body, because I was feeling it. I was feeling it in the quantum field. I was feeling it as her. I was feeling it as me. I was feeling it on all the levels of myself. I could feel energy running through my body. I could feel emotions leaving. I could feel things that I can't even explain. There was one night where my body got really hot, like I was purifying something, like it was just being burned out of me. Um, then for a while I had chills, but I didn't feel sick, like flu or cold sick. I understood. I was very acutely aware of what this was tied to it, and it was temporary. It wasn't lasting for hours or hours or something. Um, yeah, and then there was something released from my throat chakra. I mean, I went through so much, and it was such a trip because I had to go through my daily life even while all this was going on. I couldn't just hermit up in a cave or in my bed or in my bedroom, because I have a job. I take care of somebody. So there was even one day where I think I was on my feet for 12 hours. I was washing dishes and cooking meals. I had to go grocery shopping and run a bunch of errands. I actually went to the hospital because it was so bad. I wanted to get some crutches. They didn't have any. And I got an x-ray of my feet, even because I mean, my my leg from my knee to my calf was swollen. My ankle was really swollen. Um, and I just thought, well, I'm addressing it on a spiritual level, but I want to address it on a physical level too. In the x-rays, it did come back, and it said that there's some calcification in my Achilles tendon, but that's not where the pain was. The Achilles tendon is more towards the back of the calf, and my pain is like right where that it's called your ankle bone is called your you have ankle bones on the inside and outside of your leg. The inside one is called the medial malleolus, and the external one is called the lateral malleolus. So it was the outside of my ankle where it was very swollen, like right below where your ankle bone would be. And so I knew, it's like, okay, those calcifications aren't there, but they're not causing this. I mean, what was causing this is literally the release, because while I have had ankle pain at in different junctures in my life. I've had, body work and Feldenkrais and a lot of that to work it out. And then it goes away for a long time and then it comes back. But this was like, it was spot on. It was pretty much the next day after I did that decree in prayer and right after this session. So it was obvious. Remember, I told you, as I'm doing this work, I look to see what shows up. And so, no surprise that right after we had cleared this past lifetime, or at least looked at it, that it was purging itself from my body. But as it went on for a few days, I thought, there's no way I can do this job or any job if I'm going to be hobbling around. I felt like it was going to go on for the rest of my life. And so we checked in once, and we checked in a lot of times, but during one of our check-ins, she said, I can't tell you how common this is. Like almost everybody I've worked through, when these physical pains come up, um, people feel like, oh no, I'm going to be stuck with this pain for the rest of my life. And she said, but there is an end to it, you know? That pain has an expiration date. It's not going to stay with you forever. And I really felt it lighten up today. And interestingly enough, I did a live stream earlier today, and I told a little bit of the story, and it was almost like vocalizing that with witnesses helped release the next piece of it. So I'm going to wrap this up pretty quick. I'm also going to write a blog about it at some point, but I just felt it was very important to do this vocally and also written. So this is part one, um, or this is the vocal aspect of it. I've had so many realizations since then. I can't even tell you. And the day that I had to go grocery shopping and run all those errands and go get x-rays and see the doctor and all that, I was in pain all day. But you know what? For some reason, I had so much gratitude for finally having uncovered this piece. I had to go into this office building for the state of Oregon and fill out these forms and renew an application. I was hobbling up and down stairs. I was hobbling up and down stairs at the hospital. Like, I was not comfortable, but there was so much joy in my heart for finally discovering, this. And now my central nervous system can unwind. And for the first time in my life, I can know what deep relaxation feels like, even in the face of immense physical pain. And just this awareness of all these multidimensional aspects of myself and my awareness of myself in the quantum field. And it's like I could feel what was happening to that woman in that lifetime as she let go of that and how we're connected. And I could feel myself, you know, purging and working this all out. And in studying Buddhism, I remember they say that it's very important your state of mind when you at the moment that your spirit and your body separate, because it plays a role in your incarnation. Your state of mind literally plays a role in your next incarnation. And you know I there's so much there's so many realizations that I've had that I can't even vocalize yet. This process isn't totally done. And that's part of why I want to wait to write about it, because I know there will be more realizations. But there's so many realizations that I'm having that are even like beyond the intellect. It's just seeds have been planted of a wisdom that I carry now that I did not used to carry, or that I was unaware of or didn't have access to. Um, and I know that, it is really important to transform those emotions and beliefs as they come up, not wait for a week or a year or however long, because it's energy in motion, right? So if we can allow those emotions to come up and allow ourselves to have those emotions and then release them and give them either to the earth or to the divine mother, and then release those beliefs to Father Sky and to the divine Father, then they've served their purpose, right? They've come, they've signaled something that needs attention, and they have moved through, like a wave. They break and then they become part of the ocean again. They don't stay a wave forever. And if we do hold on to these false beliefs, and we do hold tightly to these emotions and tightly to our beliefs about our experiences, um, then we forget that we are love and we lose our focus. Our focus shifts to fear or to sadness or to anger, or to the belief that I'm not enough. Um, it's not fair. I've been abandoned. We're never abandoned. We disconnect from our I am presence. We might disconnect from source, but source never disconnects from us. And so, yeah, so I really want to encourage that no matter what happens to you in your life, that you learn to allow these emotions without holding on. Allow them to move through you and then transmute them. And the same with belief. And I'm not suggesting that you go be like me and, go searching in the for, like I told you, I was on a wild goose chase, right? The next book, the next workshop, the next teacher, the next session with some kind of healer. And actually, I'm not saying that any of that was wrong, because I think I learned pieces and saw glimpses, and seeds were planted that brought me here to where I am. So I'm not making myself wrong. I'm just saying, don't go on a frantic search, because as long as you're diligent and you're doing your work and you show up for your life, what is ready to surface will surface, whether you think you're ready or not. It will ripen. That experience, whatever wants to show itself, it will ripen in due time, whether it's this time, this lifetime, or another time. And we have infinity to work this out. you know um our soul has been on a long journey, and it's never over. And so we don't have to feel too much in a hurry. And at the same time, it is okay to say, hey, gosh darn it, I really want to get to the root of this, and to be diligent and stay the course, and know that even if you think you've lost the plot, or you've lost your focus, or you're too distracted, or you can't be consistent, or whatever it is, as long as you just keep coming back and keep being diligent and stay the course, you will get to where you want to go. And ultimately, where you want to go, or at least where I want to go, is to fully remember myself, the truth of what I am, and my truest frequency, my frequency of my divine blueprint of who I am, is love. I am truth. I am power. I am wisdom. I am love. And so are you. And so I share this all with you today in hopes of planting a seed that you can remember your essence and your true nature. May it be so. Thank you for tuning in. If you feel that this would be helpful for anybody else to hear, um, definitely spread the word, whether you want to share it in an email or share it on your social media, wherever and however you wish to share it. Whether you want to save it to a YouTube playlist that you have so you can um, watch it later, um, however that unfolds for you. And know that I will be back with more on this, what unfolds afterwards. Maybe I'll write a 2-part blog about um, talking about what I spoke of here in this video, in the part 1 of the blog, and then maybe a second part of how it unfolds down the road. And then if you would like Janet's information, it's right here, ticker tape, stateoftheheart.jh@gmail.com. Her name is, I might have spelled it wrong, but it's pronounced Jeanette. It's not pronounced Janet. It's Jeanette Hudden Jorgensen. And we haven't established a date, but she'll be on here sometime in March. So keep your eyes peeled for that. I hope you'll like and subscribe to this channel. And as I said, share if you feel inspired. Thank you all so, so much for being here and for listening. And may we all know ourselves and the truth of what we are, which is love. Okay. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And